I found my girlfriend's secret phone. I wish it was just cheating. 3 months ago, I found a phone that wasn't supposed to exist. At least, that's what I thought. The weird thing is that I wasn't snooping. I wasn't looking for evidence. I wasn't one of those paranoid boyfriends who checks messages or tracks locations. For 4 years, I trusted my girlfriend completely. Her name is Emma. We met when we were both in college. Back then, neither of us had much money. We lived in tiny apartments, ate cheap food, and spent most of our weekends watching movies because that was all we could afford. We grew up together. At least, that's how it felt. By the time all of this happened, we had been living together for almost 2 years. We knew each other's schedules. We knew each other's habits. We even knew what the other person was going to order at a restaurant before they said it out loud. Nothing felt hidden. Nothing felt suspicious. That's why what happened next hit me so hard. It was a Thursday night. I remember because Thursdays were usually boring. Emma was taking a shower. I was cleaning the living room because her parents were supposed to visit that weekend. While moving the couch, I noticed something black wedged between the wall and one of the cushions. At first, I thought it was a remote control. Then I picked it up. It was a phone. Not an old broken phone, not a spare phone. A newer phone, charged, turned on, working. For a second, I assumed it belonged to Emma. That didn't seem strange. People upgrade phones all the time. Maybe she hadn't gotten rid of her old one yet. But then I looked closer. I had never seen this phone before, not once. And we lived together. The lock screen was blank. No photos, no notifications, no name. Just a 6-digit passcode screen. I stared at it for maybe 10 seconds before hearing the bathroom door open. Emma walked into the room. The moment she saw the phone in my hand, her face changed. Not slightly. Completely. I had never seen that expression before. Fear. Real fear. She crossed the room almost immediately and grabbed the phone. "Where did you find that?" The question came out way too fast. I remember laughing because the reaction seemed so dramatic. "Behind the couch," I said. She looked relieved, then nervous again, then relieved. The entire thing was strange. "Why do you have 2 phones?" I asked. For a second, she didn't answer. Then she smiled. Not a natural smile. One of those smiles people make when they're buying time. "Oh, that," she said. "It's just an old work phone." That explanation should have ended the conversation. But something felt off. Maybe it was the way she grabbed it. Maybe it was the panic in her eyes. Maybe it was the fact that I had never seen it before. Whatever it was, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, I watched her place the phone inside a drawer in our bedroom. The next morning, it was gone. I didn't ask questions. At least, not yet. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Everyone deserves privacy. Everyone has things they don't talk about. But over the next few weeks, I started noticing things that had never stood out before. Small things. Tiny things. The kind of things you ignore until they start forming a pattern. Every night around 11:30, Emma disappeared for 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes she said she was calling her mother. Sometimes she said she was answering work emails. Sometimes she gave no explanation at all. And every single time, she took that phone with her. Not her regular phone. That phone. The one she claimed was old. The one she supposedly didn't use anymore. That's when the questions started. And once the questions started, I couldn't make them stop. I tried to ignore it. For a while, I convinced myself I was overreacting. Emma had never given me a reason not to trust her. 4 years together, and we had never dealt with anything close to cheating. But once you notice something strange, It's impossible to unsee it. Every night, the same routine. Around 11:30 p.m., she would take the phone and disappear. Sometimes she went to the balcony. Sometimes she sat in her car outside. Once, I woke up at nearly 2 in the morning and found her sitting alone in the kitchen, staring at the screen. The second she noticed me, she locked it and smiled like nothing had happened. The strange thing wasn't that she had a secret phone. The strange thing was how carefully she protected it. One evening, we were watching a movie when her regular phone started ringing. She asked me to grab it from the bedroom. When I walked in, I noticed the second phone charging in the corner. The screen suddenly lit up. A notification appeared. Just one line. "Thank you. You saved my life." That was it. No name, no profile picture, nothing. My stomach dropped. I wasn't sure what I expected to see. Maybe messages from another guy, maybe dating apps, maybe something that would confirm every suspicion I had built in my head. Instead, I saw a message that made no sense at all. Before I could read anything else, Emma walked into the room and unplugged the phone. "What are you doing?" she asked. Her voice wasn't angry. It was scared. "I was just getting your phone." She stared at me for a second and then nodded. But I knew something had changed. She knew I had seen the notification, and I knew she was hiding something. Over the next week, things got worse. I started paying attention to details. The phone was never left alone anymore. She carried it everywhere. Bathroom, kitchen, grocery store, even short walks. It became almost attached to her. One night, curiosity got the better of me. Emma had fallen asleep on the couch. The phone was sitting on the coffee table. For the first time ever. My heart started pounding. I knew I shouldn't touch it, but I also knew I wouldn't get another chance. I picked it up. The passcode screen appeared. 6 digits. I tried her birthday. Wrong. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. I tried a few obvious combinations. Nothing. Then the screen locked completely. I put it back exactly where it had been and spent the next hours staring at the ceiling. I felt guilty, but I also felt frustrated, because now I knew for certain that there was something she didn't want me to see. A few days later, I noticed something else. Every month, on the exact same date, money disappeared from our joint account. Not huge amounts. Sometimes $50, sometimes $200, sometimes more. At first, I thought it was a subscription. Then I checked. It wasn't. The payments were being transferred to different people every single month. Different names, different accounts. No explanation, no notes, nothing. Now my mind was racing. Was she being scammed? Was someone blackmailing her? Was she secretly supporting another family? Every theory sounded insane. But so did the truth. The following Friday, everything finally changed. Emma forgot the phone at home, for the first time in months. She was already halfway to work when I noticed it sitting on the kitchen counter. I stared at it for nearly 10 minutes. Then it vibrated. One new message. I looked down. And what I read completely destroyed every theory I had. "Without your help, my daughter wouldn't be alive today." At that moment, I realized this wasn't a secret relationship. This wasn't cheating. This wasn't blackmail. It was something else entirely. And somehow, that scared me even more. Emma looked at me for several seconds before speaking again. "The person who helped my family wasn't who I expected." I could feel my heart pounding. Something about her expression told me this wasn't going where I thought it was. "Who was it?" I asked. She looked down at the table. "Your father." For a moment, I honestly thought I had misheard her. My father had been dead for almost 6 years. "What?" was all I managed to say. Emma nodded. I didn't believe it either at first. I spent years searching. Every trail led nowhere. Then I found an old record connected to one of the bank deposits. The account belonged to a small business. Your father's business. I stared at her in disbelief. That's impossible. That's exactly what I thought. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document. I opened it. There it was. My father's name. My father's company. The same dates she had described. The same period when her family had been struggling. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Growing up, my father had never talked about helping anyone. He wasn't the type to brag, but he also wasn't the type to tell emotional stories. After he died, I thought I knew who he was. Suddenly, I wasn't so sure anymore. I didn't tell you because I didn't know how, Emma said quietly. At first, I thought it would sound crazy. Then the longer I waited, the harder it became. I looked at the paper again. My hands were shaking. Why would he do that? She smiled sadly. I asked myself the same question. Then she reached for the phone and opened one of the notes. A few months before your father started helping us, another family had helped him. I stared at her. What? She nodded. Your father's business almost failed when you were a kid. Someone stepped in. He never forgot it. So when he saw another family struggling, he decided to do the same thing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like discovering an entirely different version of the man I thought I knew. Emma continued. That's why I started helping people too. One act of kindness became another, then another, then another. She pointed at the hundreds of conversations inside the phone. Every one of these stories exists because someone decided to help without expecting anything back. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The room was completely silent. I kept thinking about all the weeks I had spent convincing myself she was cheating. All the scenarios I had invented in my head, all the suspicion, all the paranoia. The reality had been the exact opposite. While I was looking for the worst in her, she had been hiding the best part of herself. Eventually I laughed, not because anything was funny, because I felt stupid. Emma laughed too. Then she started crying. And a second later, I was crying too. The tension of the past few months finally broke. We sat there talking for hours. She showed me dozens of stories. A single mother who had managed to keep her apartment. A teenager who stayed in school. A family that could finally afford treatment for their daughter. None of them knew who Emma was. Most of them never would. Then I asked a question that had been bothering me all night. Why hide it from me? She looked down. Because the moment people know you're helping someone, it becomes about you. I thought about that for a second. She continued. I didn't want praise. I didn't want attention. I didn't want people telling me I was a good person. I just wanted to help. I couldn't argue with that. The truth was, if she had told everyone, she probably would have received endless compliments. Instead, she kept everything private. Not because she was hiding something bad, because she was protecting something good. A few weeks later, something happened that changed me completely. Emma received a message from one of the people she had helped years earlier. The message was simple. It said, I finally got back on my feet. I'd like to help someone else now. Can you connect me with a family that needs it? I remember staring at that screen. That was the moment everything clicked. My father had helped a stranger. That stranger's kindness had eventually reached Emma's family. Emma had spent years helping hundreds of people. And now one of those people wanted to continue the chain. None of them knew each other, yet all of them were connected. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my father, about how little I actually knew, about how one decision he made years ago had quietly changed the lives of people he would never meet. The next morning, I made a decision. I asked Emma if I could help. At first, she refused. Then she laughed and handed me the phone. We spent the next few hours reading messages together. Real people, real problems, real stories. For the first time, I understood why she had protected that phone so carefully. It wasn't a secret. It was a responsibility. 3 months ago, I found a phone that wasn't supposed to exist. I thought it would expose a betrayal. I thought it would destroy my relationship. Instead, it revealed something much harder to process. The fact that people can quietly change each other's lives without ever asking for credit. The fact that one small act of kindness can travel further than anyone realizes. And the fact that sometimes the truth is so unexpected that your mind never even considers it as a possibility. To this day, I still think about how close I came to being completely wrong about Emma. If I had trusted my assumptions, I would have spent the rest of my life believing a lie. Instead, I learned something about her, something about my father, and something about myself. The funny thing is, I never found out who originally helped my father all those years ago. The chain goes back even further. Maybe that's the point. Maybe no one is supposed to know where it started. Maybe all that matters is making sure it doesn't end. So that's my story. I found my girlfriend's secret phone. And believe me, I really wish it had just been cheating. What would you have thought if you were in my place? Would you have opened the phone? Or would you have left it alone? Let me know.